Surveys play an important role in design research, yet most of the designers get them wrong. In today's video, let's go through a survey and make it a better one. So we will be judging this form based on 5 parameters: how the form is shared, how much context is given in the introduction, what is the sequence and categorization of questions, kinds of questions that are asked and how to answer them, and lastly, how the survey is concluded. So the first one is all about how you share the survey link. Ideally, it should be a well-drafted message which should share enough context so the person knows what this form is about, how can they help you with it, and additionally, how much time will it take, because if you don't mention that, most of the people will just skip through your link. Let's start looking at this example. So now when I look at this WhatsApp message, as you can see, it does not give me a lot of context. It just simply says, hey, can you please fill this form? It'll be a great help. You see, I don't know what this form is about. I have no context and probably I will even skip through it. But for the sake of this video, let's click on it. So let's move on to the next one. It's all about introductions. Ideally, this should involve enough context to help me understand what the research is about. What are you exactly looking for in this research? If there are any technical words or concepts that are used in the form, this is the place to explain those. And lastly, it should definitely share if the data is going to remain confidential or are you going to publish the data, and what kind of participants you're looking for in the survey. So let's check it. The title is a little abrupt because it says UX case study - nutrition calculator app. So it makes me wonder, maybe it's for an existing app or maybe they're trying to build a new app. It's a little confusing for me. And if we talk about the first line of the introduction, it seems very repetitive. UX case study, nutrition calculator app, UX design certificate course. The second line of the introduction gives me more context, but there are 2 problems here. They are biasing me. Do you know why? Because it says people who take their health seriously. Now I'm automatically going to act as a person, oh yeah, I take my health seriously, I go to the gym, I calculate my nutrition value and all of that. So it's extremely biased. And the second one is about challenge. It says problems faced by people. So you see the word problems, it already is biasing me that I have to be a complaint box in this form, which is not a good thing for the data. And it also says something like share your honest and genuine answers, which makes me wonder, can I also lie in this form? So you see, it's just adding to a lot of confusion, whereas it should be straight and simple. We could have in fact gone ahead and written an introduction like, hey Rakshita, this side, I'm working on understanding nutrition calculator apps. This is a design course project and your response will be really valuable. It will take under 5 minutes only. The goal of this survey is to find out what you think about the nutrition and how you currently keep a check on the same. And it's even better to give an incentive to people to fill out the form. Take the survey to win an Amazon card worth 250 rupees. Thank you so much for taking out time and helping me in the research. You see, in the last, we have to be thankful because ultimately they are doing us a favor. So that was our introduction. Now let's move on to the next part, sequence and categorization. This one is all about the order in which questions are asked. Are they even making sense or are they jumping from one section to another? Also, are there properly defined sections and groups if I'm asking about more than one kind of data? And does the overall sequence seem very lengthy or is it good at building trust? So let's find out. I can see that a lot of demographic questions are asked in the beginning, followed by some questions around the topic, that is, what are your food preferences and all of those kind of questions. And this seems like a pretty long form because I'm scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and I don't see a proper sequence of questions because when they're talking about a certain topic, they are jumping onto the next question and it's not feeling like an interesting conversation for sure. So how can we improve this? First of all, the form feels very long. There are no proper groups or categorization of questions and I see a mix of demographic questions, screener questions, detailed questions. All of that is just mixed and put into a bunch of questions. So it's a mess and I'm definitely going to go to sleep filling this long form. Especially when you start off with the demographic questions, it uses up all your mental energy and you're left with very little energy towards the end of the form. A good way to do this is starting off at the right foot, getting down into the topic because you've already shared the context in the introduction, and make sections in your form. This also helps you ask screener questions, and if somebody is not the right audience, they can drop off in the first section. People who stay in your form throughout till the end are definitely your target audience, and then you can ask them questions like their contact number and other demographic details. Before that, it will not really be relevant to you. Also, people are more likely to share their personal information once they have shared the generic information. So make sure to remember that trick. Now let's move on to the fourth stage. It's all about the kinds of questions and the way to answer them. So here are some general rules. The The questions should be relevant to your research. The respondent should be able to understand the question. The respondent should be able to understand how to answer this question. And lastly, what kind of data are you expecting to get out of these answers? So let's take the question one by one and we will improve them together. The first question says, what is your complete name? Now, one thing that you need to understand is people don't have time. They are doing a favor by filling this survey. So try to save time as much as you can. Now, instead of asking what is your complete name, we can just simply say name ? Or in fact, in most of the surveys, we don't even need the name because we already have the email ID and contact information. But if we absolutely need the name, just go ahead and make a simple version of the question. Moving on to the next question. Which gender do you identify with? Again, it's a long question and we can cut it short to gender ? Next up, what is your email ID? This is irrelevant as we're already collecting the ID. But if you're not sure how to do that, I will mention that in the comments for you. Please mention your PH number. Again, a long question, and this is like a jargon. Using jargon is never a good idea, so we will go ahead and write the complete word so that if somebody doesn't understand, they know we are talking about phone number. Which age group do you belong to? We can simply cut down the question by asking age group ? Another problem that I see here is we have different sizes of categories. So somewhere we are talking only about an age difference of 10 years and somewhere we are going all the way from 27 to 50. It's not a good idea. Always use equal groups when you're giving an option to choose. Which city are you from? Again, a long question, and the description makes me a little biased because let's say I'm from Ghaziabad, which I actually am, and I have always wanted to write Delhi whenever people look at the cultural background and they mention things like these. So even if I'm from Ghaziabad, I will go ahead and write New Delhi. And this kind of description also confuses people. So if they're born and brought up in Lucknow and now living in Delhi, they will not be able to understand whether you are asking the current address or whether you are asking the hometown address. So it's a bit confusing. What languages do you speak? First of all, there can be more than one language, so it's a bad idea to use radio buttons over here. We should rather use checkboxes, and this feels like an irrelevant question given the topic that we want to know more about. Educational background, again, seems like an irrelevant question. Current employment status also seems like an irrelevant question because it doesn't really matter how employed I am or how educated I am based on if I calculate my nutrition value or not. Food preference. Now, this is the kind of question that I'm looking for because when I read the introduction that it's about nutrition tracking and food tracking, I'm expecting these kind of questions and not about my address or my city. That throws me off. In fact, this question should be on the top right after the introduction. That's the best way to hook people into your survey. Next question, how busy do you define your daily life schedule? It's a vague question and a biased one because if I'm busy or not does not really help me understanding whether I value about nutrition or not. And in questions like these, people will always answer yes, even if the answer is no, because of social desirability. They want to believe they are busy. They want to be seen as someone who has busy schedule, even though they're sleeping all day. The next question is also a biased one because it says, do you want to be healthy? Again, chances are high that even if the answer is no, people will answer yes because they want to be seen as someone who is fit. They want to believe in the idea of, yes, I live a healthy life, even though they don't. Now, how much did you exercise last month? Are you happy? Okay, I get it that maybe this question is asked to cross-check the one above, but again, it's irrelevant to the topic and the question is really confusing because it involves two questions and I'm not sure how to really answer it. These kind of questions are called double-barrel questions where you ask two different questions and people are confused which one to answer. One involves a numeric value here and the other involves a yes and no answer here. But the two of them together are not making a sense and they're not relevant to our topic. So we will go ahead and remove this question to cut down to the important ones. Do you think food habits play a vital role in maintaining good health? I'm sure by now you've understood what is the problem with this question. There is a difference between what I think and what I do. And if you ask me questions about what I think, what I wish to do, what I want to do, they are attitudinal questions. Are you currently or used to in the past consult a health or nutrition expert? Again, health expert and nutrition expert are two different people and a health expert is a very generic term. So now the respondent can think, okay, I visit a doctor, so should I answer yes? You see how vague the question is? So we have to be specific here. Have you ever consulted a nutritionist or dietitian before? We can add these two here because they belong to the same domain and bring in more context to the question. On a scale of 1 to 5, how aware are you of the nutrition and calorie requirement for your body? Nobody wants to say that they are not aware about something. People want to come off as someone smart. So again, this is a question of social desirability and we are trying to understand what people think. But what we really want to understand understand is what people do. So we will ask them a question like, do you track your daily food nutrition? Yes or no? And in the description, we will give a little more context. Example, calorie count, water intake, balanced eating, etc. So this gives enough context, and this asks about what you do instead of what you think. In fact, I will use this question to divide my survey into two separate sections, because based on the answer to this question, I want people to proceed with the form and give me more qualitative data. And if the answer is no, then I don't really want to look at their answers, because it will not be qualitative data. I'm not looking at my target audience anymore. So this will be the point where I'm going to filter out the extra people from my exact target audience. And if you're confused on how to do that, I will link that in the comments below. So moving on to section 2. How interested are you in tracking your daily food nutrition? Now we already know the problem with this question. Interested, social desirability and attitudinal question. We want to know how the person behaves. So we will ask this question as, how do you track your daily nutrition? And leave it as an open-ended answer, because we don't want to bias people and we want to see what are the different methods people use to track nutrition. The next question is, which app do you use to calculate and track your nutrition intake? This question has a big bias because it's already assuming that I use an app. These kind of questions are called loaded questions, where we make assumptions about our respondents even before asking them. It's not a good idea. Do you currently use or have used in the past a tool for nutrition tracking? Please select all the items that apply. Now, can you see how the sequence of the questions is very vague here? Because we have already asked which app do you use, and now we are asking, have you ever used a tool? Instead, we can directly skip this question because we have already asked that. The next question is, how would you characterize tools for nutrition tracking available today? If you look at the question and the options, they are a little complicated to understand. As a general rule of thumb, always use very short and crisp questions and answers. Also, it's not always a good idea to constantly ask MCQs. In a question like this, we can go ahead and ask, do you face any challenges in tracking your daily nutrition? This way, it improves the quality of our data, and people are not just biased by the options we are providing them, they have their own voice, and these kind of answers really help your data. What do you find difficult about tracking food using current food or nutrition tracking tools? Please select all that apply. Now in questions like these, we are asking people, do you find it difficult? And all our options are around, it's difficult because this, it's difficult because that. Instead, we will make it an open-ended answer so people can answer for themselves and they're not biased by the options we are giving them. What features can be added? It's a very vague and open-ended question. Questions like these will never help us survey. They will only make the survey longer and our data useless. It's our job to look at the data and draw patterns out of it as to what features can be used, what people are liking in other apps, and all of these things, instead of directly asking them. Don't put your responsibility on their shoulders. It's never a good idea. Instead of asking questions like, what according to you are the benefits or the challenges of a nutrition calculator app, we can just simply ask questions like, what has your experience been with the apps? The most common mistake that we make in surveys is asking people, what challenges do you face? What do you like about this experience? Instead of biasing them towards negatives and positives, just make it an open-ended question and ask them, what has your experience been with these apps? Let them decide whether it's positive, it's negative, or it's a mix of both. That will be the best kind of answer that you will get. Do you think there are any drawbacks to using a nutrient or calorie tracker as a part of your daily life? Again, this is a biased question that is asking about the drawbacks. In fact, do we even want to ask a question like this? Questions like these can very well be covered in interviews. 90% people track various kinds of data on their apps. Which other activities do you track? Do you see there is a big problem in this question? We are already giving a statistics and asking people, hey, most of the people do this. Do you also do this? Chances are they will say yes, even if the answer is no. So stop biasing people in your questions. Instead, we will ask a simpler question like, do you track any other activities? And give the following options: daily step count, sleep schedule, regular health checkups, workout routines, and others. I will take off the last two options because they are irrelevant to the question. If you're asked to record or track your nutrition with the phone, what method of entry would you prefer? Now that's a good question with the right answering options. We can definitely keep this question as it is. We are not going to make a lot of change here. Now it's time to move on to the final stage, conclusion of our surveys. This is very important because this is the right place to ask personal details to stay in touch for taking an interview or taking the research forward. So it's best to keep it simple and crisp. Here the last question is any other difficulties, suggestions, opinions you might have regarding a nutrition or calorie calculator app. Please feel free to share it here. It's a good open-ended question, but we will go ahead and simplify it a bit. And for the demographic questions that were asked on top, we will bring them to the last section and ask all the personal details like phone number and name, because the person is more likely to fill them now. And the cherry on the cake is the message that you get after submitting the survey. That is your place to shine. Customize the message, because most of the designers make this mistake of keeping it on auto-generated message, and it's a plain, basic, boring message called "Thank you for your response." Instead, make it more creative. Be thankful to the people who have taken out time and filled your survey, and use this space to keep in touch with them for further research of your project. Wow, that was a crazy journey. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you like this one, I'm sure you're going to love the video on UX laws. Happy designing!